The stars had always belonged to the strong. This was the truth that Commander Al had learned since he was a hatchling, and it was the truth that had guided the Dominion for 300 years. The weak existed to serve the strong. The small existed to feed the large. This was the natural order of the universe, and they had proven themselves masters of it. Al stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Devourer's Mandate. His forearms were folded behind his back as he watched the stars through the massive viewing window. His hard shell gleamed under the bridge lights, and his compound eyes reflected the glow of 17 conquered systems. 17 civilizations had fallen before the fleets. 17 species now served as slaves or had been wiped from existence entirely. Today, he was looking at number 18. The holographic display before him showed a small cluster of 12 star systems. They belonged to a species called humans. Al had studied the reports about them. They were soft creatures, covered in thin skin instead of proper armor. They had only 2 arms and 2 eyes. They had been traveling among the stars for barely 4 centuries, which made them children compared to the ancient. Their technology was average. Their military was small. Their empire was modest. They were perfect targets. "Commander," said his second officer, approaching with a tablet in his claws, "we have received messages from the Galactic Council, many messages." Al made a clicking sound of annoyance. The Galactic Council was a gathering of old species who preferred talking to action. They had sent warnings before when they expanded their territory. Those warnings had meant nothing. "What do they want now?" Al asked. "They are asking us not to enter human space," said. His voice carried a hint of something unusual. Was it concern? "The messages are not just from the Council itself. The Etherians have sent a separate warning, so have the Stone Singers. Even the Void Walkers have broken their silence to contact us." This made Al pause. The Void Walkers had not spoken to any other species in over 1,000 years. They were ancient beyond measure and cared nothing for the affairs of younger races. Why would they speak now? "Show me these messages," Al commanded. Activated the tablet, and a series of holographic recordings played before them. The first was from the Etherian ambassador, a being of pure light that flickered with each word. "The Dominion must not enter human space. We have watched your expansion with concern but have not interfered. We interfere now. The humans are not what they appear. Turn back. This is not a request." The next message was from a stone singer, a creature of living rock whose voice rumbled like an earthquake. "Young, you do not understand what you are approaching. We have seen civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. We have seen many predators in this galaxy. The humans are different. They do not fight like others. They do not stop like others. Turn back while you still exist." The final message was from the Void Walkers. It was not a video, but simply text that appeared on the screen. The words were simple but carried weight that Al could almost feel. "The Sol Doctrine is absolute. The Empire learned this. They no longer exist. Turn back." Al read the messages twice. Then he laughed. The sound was harsh and filled with contempt. "Sol Doctrine," he said. "What is this supposed to mean? And they were a minor empire that collapsed from internal problems centuries ago. Everyone knows this." "Commander," said carefully, "perhaps we should investigate further. The warnings are very strong. Many species have never agreed on anything before, but they all agree on this." Al turned his compound eyes toward his second officer. There was cold anger in his gaze. "Are you suggesting we turn back because some ancient species are afraid of soft-skinned mammals?" he asked. "They have never retreated from any enemy. We have crushed civilizations that were old when humans were still swimming in the oceans of their birth world. We have devoured empires that span hundreds of systems. And you want me to fear creatures who cannot even grow proper armor on their bodies?" Lowered his head in submission. "No, Commander, I was only being cautious." "Caution is for the weak," Al declared. He turned to the bridge crew. "Send a message back to the Galactic Council. Tell them the Dominion thanks them for their concern, but does not require their permission to expand. We will take what we wish, as we always have." He looked back at the star map showing human space. 12 systems, probably hundreds of millions of humans. They would make excellent slaves. Their soft bodies would not be useful for heavy labor, but they seemed intelligent enough for technical work. Those who resisted would be made into examples. This was how the Dominion operated. "Set course for the threshold," Al ordered. "We cross into human space within the hour, all 200 ships in attack formation." The fleet moved like a swarm of metal insects through the void. 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They had conquered species with far more impressive defenses. What could humans possibly do against such force? As they approached the border of human space, a transmission came through. It was from a human vessel, though no ship appeared on their sensors. The message was in the galactic common language, and it was very short. "You have entered restricted space. This is your only warning. Leave now." Al stared at the message for a long moment. The voice had been calm and flat, without any emotion at all. There was no fear in it, no anger, no desperation. It sounded like someone reading a simple fact, like announcing that water was wet or that stars produced light. "Delete it," Al ordered. The communications officer obeyed without question. The fleet crossed the threshold and entered human space. Behind them, the border markers pulsed once with red light and then went dark. Somewhere in the void, sensors detected the crossing and sent signals racing toward distant stations. The humans knew they were coming. Al did not know it yet, but he had just made the last mistake of his life. He had ignored the warnings of species that had watched the galaxy for millions of years. He had dismissed the silence of the Void Walkers. He had laughed at the mention of something called the Sol Doctrine. He would learn what all of those things meant soon enough. The stars ahead looked peaceful and empty, but the stars were very good at keeping secrets, and human space held many secrets indeed. The Dominion was about to discover why every ancient species in the galaxy had learned a simple rule. When it comes to humans, you only get one warning. And they had just ignored theirs. The planet was called Harvest 7. It was a small world, green and blue, covered with farms and fields that stretched across entire continents. 50,000 humans lived there. They grew food for nearby colonies and lived simple lives far from the busy core worlds of human space. They had no military base. They had no warships. They were just farmers. At least, that is what the scanners showed. Commander Al looked at the planet through the viewing window of his flagship. This would be easy. A farming colony with no defenses would fall within hours. They would capture the humans, take control of the food production, and use this world as a base for further expansion into human space. "Launch the landing ships," Al ordered. 10,000 warriors, standard subjugation protocol. 30 transport ships descended toward the planet's surface. Each one carried hundreds of soldiers armed with plasma rifles and wearing combat armor. They had done this many times before. The process was always the same. Land, establish control, crush any resistance, begin the enslavement process. As the ships entered the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The communication channels filled with strange sounds coming from the planet's surface. Al ordered his officers to analyze the signals. "Commander," said the communications officer, his voice confused, "the humans are laughing." Al's compound eyes narrowed. "Laughing?" "Yes, Commander. They are laughing on open channels. They can see our ships descending, and they are laughing." This made no sense. Species facing invasion did not laugh. They screamed. They begged. They ran. Sometimes they fought with desperate courage, but they did not laugh. Laughter was the sound of creatures who had no fear. Before Al could respond, alarms began screaming across the bridge. "Commander," shouted the tactical officer, "energy signatures detected on the planet's surface. massive energy signatures. What kind of signatures? Al demanded. Weapons, Commander. Military-grade weapons, thousands of them. On the viewing screen, the planet's surface came alive with light. What the scanners had identified as farming equipment suddenly revealed its true nature. Irrigation towers transformed into anti-ship batteries. Grain silos opened to release missile swarms. Tractors unfolded into automated defense platforms. The entire planet was a trap. The first wave of landing ships never reached the ground. Missiles tore through them like paper. Energy beams cut them into pieces. 30 ships became clouds of burning metal falling from the sky. In the first 5 minutes, the lost 8,000 warriors without a single one setting foot on human soil. Al stared at the destruction in shock. This was impossible. The scanners had shown nothing. The intelligence reports had said this was just a farming colony. How could farmers have such weapons? Launch the second wave, he commanded, his voice harsh with anger. All remaining landing forces, overwhelmed their defenses with numbers. More ships descended and more of them died. But some got through. Warriors finally landed on Harvest 7, ready to take revenge for their fallen comrades. They expected to find terrified farmers hiding in their homes. Instead, they found an army. The humans of Harvest 7 did not hide. They did not run. Men and women who had been working in fields that morning now held weapons with the ease of trained soldiers. Old farmers who had spent decades growing crops moved like special forces operators. Young people who should have been students coordinated drone swarms with perfect precision. Every single human on the planet knew how to fight, and they fought with a cold fury that terrified the warriors. Field Commander Al led his surviving troops through a small farming town. The streets were empty and quiet, too quiet. His soldiers moved carefully, checking every building, every corner. "This is wrong," one of his warriors whispered. "Where are they?" The answer came a moment later. Weapons fire erupted from everywhere at once. From windows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels that had not appeared on any scan. The humans attacked from all directions with perfect coordination. Al saw a human female step out from behind a building. She was small and thin, her skin weathered from years of working under the sun. She looked like someone's grandmother. She also held a plasma rifle that she fired with expert precision, cutting down 3 warriors in as many seconds. "Fall back," Al screamed. "Fall back to the landing zone." But there was no landing zone anymore. The humans had destroyed the ships while the warriors were distracted. There was nowhere to fall back to. There was nowhere to run. The battle lasted 6 hours. 10,000 warriors had landed on Harvest 7. When the fighting stopped, only 200 were still alive, and they were prisoners. From orbit, Commander Al watched his invasion force disappear. The planet that should have fallen in hours had become a graveyard. 30 of his ships were gone. His ground forces were destroyed, and the humans were still laughing. A transmission came from the planet's surface. Al ordered it displayed on the main screen. A human woman appeared. Her face was covered with dirt and blood. Her clothes were torn and burned. Behind her, prisoners knelt in rows with their claws bound. She looked directly into the camera and her eyes held no fear at all, only cold anger. "Attention, fleet," she said. Her voice was steady and calm. "My name is Governor Sarah of Harvest 7. You have attacked a civilian colony. You have tried to enslave our people. You have killed our families." She paused and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "What you just faced was our farmers, our teachers, our shopkeepers, our grandparents. None of them were soldiers. None of them had military training beyond basic civil defense." She leaned closer to the camera. "Imagine what happens when our actual soldiers arrive. Imagine what happens when our real warships get here. Imagine what our military will do to you when they learn that you attacked our families." The transmission ended. Al stood in silence on his bridge. Around him, his officers were frozen with shock. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for this. They had conquered 17 species, and none of them had fought like this. None of them had been ready for attack on supposedly peaceful worlds. Commander said quietly, "What are your orders?" Al's mind was racing. He still had 170 ships. He was still powerful. He could still win this war. He just needed to find the human, their Earth, and destroy it. Cut off the head and the body would die. Set course deeper into human space, he ordered. We find their core worlds, we destroy them, we end this. He did not understand yet that he was doing exactly what the humans wanted. He did not know that every ship that flew deeper into human space was flying into a trap. He did not realize that his entire invasion force had been allowed to enter human territory for a very specific reason. The humans did not just defend their space. They made sure that enemies who entered their space never left. And Commander Al was about to learn why. 3 days passed in silence. The fleet moved deeper into human space and nothing tried to stop them. No ships came to fight them. No warnings were broadcast. No missiles flew from hidden bases. There was only emptiness and the cold light of distant stars. Commander Al did not find this silence comforting. It felt wrong. After what had happened at Harvest 7, he had expected the humans to throw everything they had at his fleet. Instead, they had simply vanished. It was as if they had opened a door and invited them to walk through. "Where are they?" Al muttered, studying the tactical display. His fleet had traveled through 3 human systems and all of them were empty. The colonies had been evacuated. The space stations were abandoned. Even the defense platforms had been removed. The humans had left nothing behind. "Perhaps they are afraid," suggested. "Perhaps they are gathering their forces at there for a final defense." Perhaps, Al agreed, but he did not believe it. The humans at Harvest 7 had not been afraid. They had been waiting. They had been ready. Whatever was happening now, it was not fear. It was something else. On the 4th day, the fleet entered the system. It was supposed to be one of the oldest human colonies, home to billions of people. Instead, they found empty planets and silent stations. The humans had abandoned everything. That was when the human fleet appeared. They came from everywhere at once, from behind moons and inside asteroid fields, from the dark sides of planets and the depths of gas giants. Ships powered up from cold silence where they had been drifting for who knows how long, waiting for exactly this moment. Sensors that had shown empty space suddenly screamed with contacts. "Commander," the tactical officer shouted. "Human warships detected, 60 vessels." 60 ships. Al still had 170. The numbers were on his side. He should have felt confident. But as he watched the human ships move on the display, a cold feeling settled in his stomach. The human ships did not fly like normal ships. They did not form neat battle lines or elegant formations. They moved like living things, swarming and separating, and coming together again in patterns that seemed random but somehow were not. Each ship acted independently, yet they all worked together as if controlled by a single mind. "All ships attack formation," Al commanded. "Focus fire on their largest vessels." The fleet responded with perfect discipline. They had done this many times before. Plasma cannons charged. Energy shields activated. The fleet moved as one toward the human ships. Then the humans fired their weapons. Al had expected plasma beams or energy weapons or perhaps missiles. What hit his ships was something far simpler and far more terrible. The humans used kinetic weapons. They took chunks of metal and accelerated them to incredible speeds using magnetic rails. There was nothing elegant about it, nothing sophisticated, just pieces of metal moving fast enough to turn anything they hit into fire and debris. The first ship that was hit simply exploded. The kinetic round went through its shields as if they did not exist. Shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They could not stop solid objects moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. "Our shields are not working," someone screamed. "Evasive maneuvers," Al ordered. "Scatter the fleet." But scattering only made things worse. The human ships were faster and more agile than the vessels. They broke into small groups and hunted the scattered fleet like wolves hunting sheep. Every time a ship tried to run, human ships appeared in its path. Every time a group tried to stand and fight, they were hit from multiple directions at once. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, 130 ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 8. Al stood on his damaged bridge and watched the destruction. His fleet, the pride of the Dominion, had been torn apart by an enemy that was supposed to be weak. His ships, which had conquered 17 civilizations, had been treated like toys by human weapons. "Commander," said. He was holding a data tablet and his claws were shaking. "I accessed the classified files from the Galactic Council, the ones they tried to share with us before we crossed the border, the ones about the Sol Doctrine." "Show me," Al said. He no longer had the energy to sound commanding. He just wanted to understand. Displayed the files on the bridge's main screen. They were historical records, gathered over centuries from various galactic species. They told a story that made Al's blood turn cold. The Sol Doctrine was not a strategy or a policy. It was a promise. It stated that any species that attacked human civilians would be destroyed, not defeated, not conquered, destroyed, completely, forever. The files showed the evidence. The Empire had attacked a human colony 3 centuries ago. Within 50 years, they were extinct. The Eth Collective had captured human children for experiments. Their entire civilization had been hunted down and erased. The Silicon Minds of had tried to convert human colonies into machine worlds. Now their name only existed in historical records. 17 species across 400 years. All of them had attacked humans. All of them were now gone, not just defeated, gone, as if they had never existed. The files ended with an analysis from the Galactic Council. "Human warfare is not like other warfare," the analysis read. "Most species fight for territory, resources, or ideology. Humans fight for these things too, but when civilians are attacked, something changes. They stop fighting like a civilization and start fighting like a wounded animal. They become relentless. They become merciless. They do not stop until the threat is eliminated, not contained, not managed, eliminated." The analysis continued with a warning. "Humans do not accept surrender from those who attack their families. They do not negotiate. They do not forgive. The Sol Doctrine is not a bluff. It is an extinction event waiting to happen. Any species considering hostile action against human civilian populations should understand this simple truth. Humans will not stop. They will hunt you across the galaxy. They will follow you for generations. They will destroy everything you have ever built." Al read the words 3 times. Then he looked at his surviving 40 ships and understood the terrible truth of his situation. He had attacked a human civilian colony. He had tried to enslave human farmers. He had killed human families. The Sol Doctrine was now in effect. "Set course for the border," he ordered. His voice was quiet. "Maximum speed. We need to leave human space immediately." But even as he gave the order, he knew it would not be enough. The humans had let his fleet enter their space. They had waited until he was deep inside their territory. They had allowed him to commit his forces before revealing their true strength. Now they would show him why running was pointless. The hunt was about to begin. Commander Al had thought that leaving human space would be simple. His fleet was damaged, but 40 ships were still enough to fight their way through any blockade. He would retreat to territory, rebuild his forces, and perhaps the Dominion would decide that humans were not worth the trouble. Other species had been left alone when they proved too costly to conquer. He was wrong. The retreat began well enough. The fleet moved at maximum speed toward the border, following the same path they had used to enter human space. For the first few hours, nothing happened. The stars were quiet. The sensors showed empty space. Al began to hope that perhaps the humans would be satisfied with their victory and let the survivors go. Then the first ship disappeared. It was a cruiser at the back of the fleet. One moment it was there, flying in formation with the others. The next moment it was gone. No explosion, no distress signal, just gone. "What happened?" Al demanded. "Where is the Silver Claw?" "Unknown, Commander," the tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "Sensors show nothing, no enemy contacts, no weapons fire, the ship just stopped transmitting." An hour later, 2 more ships vanished. Then 3 more. The attacks came from nowhere, from ships that did not appear on any sensor until the moment they struck. The humans were using vessels that ran cold, drifting in space like dead things until their prey came close. Then they would power up for one brief moment, fire their weapons, and go dark again before anyone could respond. The fleet fell apart. Ships began to panic, breaking formation to run in different directions. That only made them easier to pick off. The human hunters did not attack the whole fleet. They attacked the ones that strayed, the ones that fell behind, the ones that tried to run alone. "Stay together," Al screamed over the fleet communications. "Do not separate, they are hunting us like animals." But fear is a powerful thing. Ships continued to break away and ships continued to die. The humans were not trying to destroy the entire fleet at once. They were doing something worse. They were making the watch their comrades die, one by one, in attacks they could not predict or prevent. After 12 hours, Al had 25 ships left. They were still deep inside human space, and every jump point they tried to use was blocked. Human vessels appeared whenever they approached a route home, not attacking but simply waiting, forcing them to turn back or be destroyed. The humans were herding them like cattle. "Commander," said, approaching slowly. His shell had turned pale with stress. "The officers are asking about surrender. Perhaps if we surrender, the humans will show mercy. Perhaps they will take us prisoner and let us live." Al laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Did you not read the files? Did you not understand what the Saul Doctrine means?" "But surely they cannot mean to kill us all," insisted. "No civilized species commits genocide. There are rules. There are conventions. The Galactic Council has laws against such things." "The humans do not care about galactic law," Al replied. He felt very tired. "They do not care about conventions or rules. We attacked their civilians. We tried to enslave their families. We killed their children. To them, we are not an enemy to be defeated. We are a disease to be cured." He turned to the communications officer. "Send a surrender signal. Broadcast it on all frequencies. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps they will surprise us." The surrender signal went out into the void. For several minutes there was no response. Al waited, hopping for something, anything, that might save his remaining ships. Finally, a response came. It was audio only, a human voice speaking in the galactic common language. "Fleet, we have received your surrender request." Al leaned forward and, "Your request is?" Al said, "We are offering unconditional surrender. Take us prisoner, put us on trial, we accept any terms." There was a pause. When the human voice spoke again, it was calm and cold. "You do not understand. We do not accept surrenders from those who attack our civilians. You had a chance to surrender when you received our warning at the threshold. You kept coming. You had a chance to surrender when you saw our farmers fight back on Harvest 7. You pushed deeper into our space. Every chance we gave you, you ignored." "We were wrong," Al shouted. "We made a mistake. Is there no mercy in your species?" "Mercy," the human said, and the word sounded strange coming from that cold voice. "You speak of mercy. Let me tell you about mercy. The children of Harvest 7 spent the attack hiding in bunkers while your soldiers tried to break through the doors. 6-year-old children listened to your warriors describe what they would do to them once they got inside. That is what you brought to our civilians. That is the mercy you showed." The human paused. You asked if there is mercy in our species. The answer is yes. We have more mercy than you can imagine. We show it to each other. We show it to those who deal with us honestly. We even show it to enemies who fight fairly. But you did not fight fairly. You came to murder and enslave. You attacked the helpless. You threatened children. Another pause. So no, there is no mercy for you. There is only the Saul doctrine. Every species that has done what you did has learned this lesson. Now it is your turn. The transmission ended. Al stood in silence. Around him, his officers were frozen with despair. The communications officer was weeping. Even who had survived 100 battles looked broken. "What do we do, Commander?" someone asked. Al had no answer. For the first time in his life, he faced an enemy that would not negotiate, would not bargain, and would not stop. He had built his career on the belief that strength was all that mattered. Now he understood that humans had a different kind of strength, one that came not from ships or weapons but from something deep inside them. The hunt continued. More ships were destroyed over the following days. The humans never attacked all at once. They picked off 1 or 2 ships at a time, wearing down the fleet through exhaustion and terror. Sometimes they would broadcast the death screams of captured ships back to the survivors, letting them hear their comrades die. It was not just warfare, it was psychological destruction. Al watched his fleet shrink. 20 ships, 15, 10. Each loss made the survivors more afraid, more desperate, more likely to make mistakes that would get them killed. On the 5th day of the retreat, only 5 ships remained. The Devourer's mandate had taken heavy damage but was still flying. Al stood on his ruined bridge and waited for the end. A final transmission came from the humans. "Commander Al, you are approaching the border of human space. We are going to let your flagship through. 1 ship, yours, the others will be destroyed." "Why?" Al asked. He did not understand. "Why spare me?" "Because someone needs to deliver our message," the human said. "Someone needs to go back to the Dominion and tell them what happened here. Someone needs to make sure they understand." There was something like dark humor in the human's voice. "We could send a recording, but recordings can be dismissed as propaganda. We could send a written report, but reports can be ignored. But a commander who watched his entire fleet die, who saw what we can do, who understands what the Saul doctrine really means, that is a message that cannot be ignored." The transmission ended. Al watched from his bridge as his remaining 4 ships were destroyed. He watched the bright flashes of explosions, heard the final screams of his warriors, and could do nothing. The humans had stripped him of everything, his fleet, his pride, and his belief that the strong always won. Then they let him go. The Devourer's mandate limped across the border of human space and into neutral territory. Behind it, the darkness was filled with the wreckage of 200 ships and the bodies of countless warriors. Al was going home, but he was not returning as a conquering hero. He was returning as a warning. The Grand Council of the Dominion gathered in the Chamber of Conquest. It was the largest room on the, built to celebrate 3 centuries of victory. The walls were covered with trophies from 17 conquered species, weapons, flags, and artifacts from civilizations that no longer existed hung as reminders of power. Today, the chamber felt different. The council members sat in uncomfortable silence as they waited for Commander Al to arrive. They had all seen the preliminary reports. 200 ships sent into human space. 1 returned. Al entered the chamber slowly. He had changed since leaving for the invasion. His shell was cracked in several places. His compound eyes had lost their sharp focus. He moved like an old creature approaching the end of its life, though he had been in his prime just weeks ago. "Tell us what happened," the High Chancellor commanded. "Tell us everything." Al told them. He described the warnings from the Galactic Council that he had ignored. He told them about Harvest 7, where farmers had destroyed an invasion force. He explained the battle in the system, where human ships had torn through shields like they were made of paper. He recounted the hunt, the psychological warfare, the refusal to accept surrender. When he finished, the chamber was silent. The council members looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and fear. They had sent their most powerful fleet to conquer a small empire of soft-skinned creatures. That fleet was gone. "Surely there must be some mistake," said Admiral Hun, the oldest military commander in the Dominion. "No species could defeat 200 of our ships with such a small force. Our intelligence must have been wrong about their numbers." "The intelligence was correct," Al replied. "The humans did not defeat us with numbers. They defeated us with patience and preparation. They had been ready for us for years, maybe decades. Every asteroid field, every empty moon, every patch of dark space held hidden ships waiting to strike. We did not invade their territory. We walked into a trap that they had spent generations building." "Then we must build a larger fleet," Hun insisted. "We must return with overwhelming force. No trap can stop 1,000 ships." Al shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. It does not matter how many ships we send. The humans will not fight us the way we expect. They will not meet us in open battle where numbers matter. They will wait. They will watch. They will pick us apart one ship at a time until nothing remains." He looked around the chamber at the trophies on the walls. "We have conquered species that fought with honor," he said. "Species that stood in neat lines and met us in glorious battle. The humans do not do this. They fight like something from a nightmare. They are patient beyond reason. They hold grudges beyond death. They will chase an enemy across the galaxy and wait for centuries if needed to take their revenge." The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for negotiations. A few suggested that Al was a coward who had invented excuses for his failure. Then the communications officer entered the chamber with news that silenced everyone. "A ship has arrived at the border," the officer announced. "A human ship. It is carrying the survivors from the ground assault on Harvest 7, the 200 warriors who were captured." This was unexpected. The humans were returning prisoners. Perhaps there was hope for negotiation after all. "Bring them here immediately," the High Chancellor ordered. An hour later, the survivors stood before the Grand Council. They were in poor condition but alive. The humans had treated their wounds, fed them, and kept them healthy. They had not been tortured or abused. But there was something wrong with them. They stood in perfect silence, their eyes empty, their bodies trembling slightly. These warriors who had fought in dozens of campaigns now looked like frightened hatchlings. "What did the humans do to you?" the High Chancellor asked. One of the survivors spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "They showed us," he said. "They showed us everything." Along with the prisoners, the human ship had delivered a data package. When the council technicians opened it, they found thousands of files, videos, audio recordings, historical documents, analysis reports. The first set of files showed what had happened to every species that had attacked human civilians throughout their history in space. 17 civilizations were documented in careful detail. There had been a powerful empire of reptilian warriors. 3 centuries ago, they had raided a human colony and taken slaves. Within 50 years, every world was glass and ash. Their species existed now only in historical records and museum samples. The Eth Collective had been a hive mind species that captured human children for biological experiments. The humans had spent 30 years hunting down every single Eth hive. They had not stopped until the last Eth queen was dead and the last egg was destroyed. The silicon mines of had been artificial intelligences that tried to convert human worlds into machine habitats. The humans had developed weapons specifically designed to destroy digital consciousnesses. They had erased the silicon mines from every computer, every network, and every backup storage in the galaxy. One by one, The files showed the fate of species that had crossed the line with humanity. Some had been destroyed quickly in massive military campaigns. Others had been hunted slowly over decades or centuries. But the result was always the same: total extinction. The final file in the data package was not historical. It was a message addressed directly to the Dominion. "You are now on our list," the message read. "Your home coordinates are known. Your fleet strength is known. Your colonies are mapped. We have recorded the names of every commander who participated in the attack on Harvest 7 and every official who approved the invasion. If a single vessel ever crosses into human space again, if a single human civilian is ever harmed by hands anywhere in the galaxy, we will finish what you started. This is not a threat. This is a scheduling notification. The Saul Doctrine is absolute. We do not forget. We do not forgive. We do not stop. Choose wisely." The Grand Council read the message in complete silence. The High Chancellor looked at the walls of the Chamber of Conquest, at the trophies from 17 conquered species. For the first time, he wondered if some of those species might have been better left alone. The vote was unanimous. It was the first unanimous vote in the 300-year history of the Dominion. Human space was declared forbidden territory. All star charts were updated to show the region as a void, an empty zone that no ship should ever enter. All military academies were ordered to add a new course to their training: the history of the Saul Doctrine and the species that had failed to take it seriously. In the years that followed, young officers would study the failed invasion as a warning. They would learn about the farmers who fought like soldiers and the soldiers who fought like nightmares. They would memorize the names of extinct species and understand why those species no longer existed. And every young officer would learn the most important lesson of galactic survival, the lesson that Al had learned too late. When the soft species warn you, listen. When they tell you to turn back, turn back. When they say they will destroy you if you cross them, believe them. Because humans do not make empty threats. They make promises. And they always keep them.